When dreams meet mathematics in 2024, millions of people are searching for ways to escape the traditional 9 to 5 grind. Social media feeds overflow with success stories, YouTube gurus promising quick riches, and testimonials from people who claim to have cracked the code. But what happens when ordinary people actually try these side hustles? What happens when someone documents not just the wins, but the losses, the failures, and the brutal mathematics that most success stories conveniently omit? This is the story of one person's journey through 5 different side hustle attempts over several years. Unlike the polished success stories you typically see, this documentary presents the unfiltered truth, the real money lost, the hours wasted, and the harsh lessons learned when ambition collides with market reality. The Employee's Time Machine, when innovation meets indifference. The first venture began with what seemed like a genuinely innovative concept, a dietary supplement designed to make workdays feel shorter. The idea stemmed from neuroscience research into time perception and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for how we experience the passage of time. The concept wasn't scientifically unfounded. Studies published in journals like Nature Neuroscience have documented how specific neural pathways influence time perception, and research has shown that certain vitamins and minerals can support cognitive function in these brain regions. The product development process involved months of research into nootropics and cognitive enhancers. The final formula contained B vitamins, magnesium, L-theanine, and other compounds known to support executive brain function. The branding was deliberately provocative. The Employee's Time Machine suggested a solution to one of modern work life's most universal complaints, the feeling that workdays drag on endlessly. Armed with what felt like solid science and a catchy concept, the marketing campaign launched across multiple channels. A professional website was built, complete with product descriptions, testimonials, and scientific explanations. The social media strategy included memes targeting office workers frustrated with their daily grind. Cryptocurrency NFTs were created as a modern marketing gimmick. The advertising spend included YouTube campaigns targeting workplace wellness keywords and radio spots during morning commute hours. The most ambitious marketing effort involved converting a personal vehicle into a mobile advertisement. QR codes were placed on every available surface, directing curious observers to the product website. Local business networking events became opportunities for face-to-face sales pitches. The product was even offered completely free to remove any price barriers and demonstrate confidence in the concept. The results were devastating. YouTube advertising generated exactly 10 website visitors despite significant spend. Radio advertising produced zero measurable traffic. The networking event yielded zero sales despite hours of pitches and product demonstrations. Most telling was the free sample campaign. When the product was offered at no cost, 80% of people declined to even try it. During the entire campaign, exactly one person purchased the product online. Research into supplement industry failure rates reveals this outcome wasn't unusual. According to industry analyses, approximately 80% of new supplement brands fail within their first year. The supplement industry generates over $50 billion annually in the United States, but nearly all of that revenue flows to established brands with decades of market presence and massive advertising budgets. New entrants face not only consumer skepticism but also regulatory hurdles, distribution challenges, and the fundamental problem of product differentiation in an oversaturated market. The advertising costs tell their own story. Industry data shows that the average customer acquisition cost for supplement companies through digital advertising ranges from $50 to $200 per customer. The campaign spent several $100s to attract 10 website visitors, none of whom converted to paying customers except for one. The mathematics were unforgiving. Even if the conversion rate had been industry average, the unit economics would have been impossible for a small operation. The psychological research around product adoption provides additional context. Studies in consumer behavior demonstrate that people are naturally suspicious of free products, associating no cost with low quality or hidden catches. When 80% of potential customers rejected a free sample, This wasn't a pricing problem, it was a fundamental trust and market fit issue. The core lesson emerged clearly. Consumers purchase supplements for health benefits they can understand and visualize. Make your workday feel shorter was too abstract, too unusual, and too far outside established wellness categories. Even with legitimate scientific backing, the concept failed to address a problem people were actively trying to solve through supplementation. The options trading marathon, years of perfect timing. The second venture lasted not weeks or months, but years. Options trading presented itself as the ultimate side hustle, a way to generate significant returns with relatively small initial capital. The appeal was reinforced by countless success stories, traders turning $500 into $50, YouTube channels documenting massive gains, and Reddit forums filled with screenshots of six-figure profits. The learning curve was steep but seemed manageable. Call options, put options, spreads, straddles, and iron condors became familiar terminology. Technical analysis, fundamental analysis, and options pricing models were studied extensively. Different strategies were tested, conservative approaches like covered calls, aggressive plays like weekly options, and complex multi-leg strategies designed to profit in any market direction. The pattern that emerged over years of trading was consistent and brutal. Periods of success would be followed by catastrophic losses that wiped out not just profits, but the original capital as well. This wasn't a one-time occurrence, it happened repeatedly. Each time, the response was to study harder, find better strategies, and try to time the market more precisely. The mathematical reality of retail options trading is well documented but rarely discussed in popular trading content. A comprehensive study by the Brazilian Securities Commission tracked 19,646 day traders over a 15-month period. The results were stark. 97% lost money and only 1.1% earned more than the minimum wage. Similar research by the Securities and Exchange Commission found that 80% of day traders lose money over any 12-month period. These statistics aren't outliers. They represent the fundamental mathematics of retail trading. Academic research published in the Review of Financial Studies analyzed the trading records of 66,465 households and found that the average household reduced its returns by 2.65 percentage points per year through active trading. The most active traders reduced their returns by 6.5 percentage points annually. The survivorship bias in trading success stories is profound. For every trader posting screenshots of massive gains on social media, thousands of others are quietly losing money. Reddit's Wall Street Bets forum, famous for its celebration of both wins and losses, provides a more honest picture. Searching for lost everything yields thousands of posts for real people who experience total account destruction. The psychological elements of trading failure are as important as the mathematical ones. Research in behavioral finance has identified numerous cognitive biases that consistently harm retail traders. Overconfidence bias leads to excessive trading, confirmation bias causes selective information processing, and the sunk cost fallacy keeps traders in losing positions far too long. The gambling psychology research is particularly relevant. Studies show that intermittent reinforcement, where wins and losses are unpredictable, creates the same neurological responses as slot machine gambling. Why do trading strategies eventually stop working? Markets are adaptive systems where profitable inefficiencies get arbitraged away. A strategy that generates consistent profits will attract more capital until the opportunity disappears. Academic research on strategy decay shows that most quantitative trading strategies have limited lifespans before their edge erodes. The reality of options trading for retail participants is that it requires not just being right about market direction, but being right about timing, volatility, and magnitude. A trader can correctly predict that a stock will rise but still lose money if the rise happens too slowly or if implied volatility decreases. Perfect timing isn't occasionally required, it's required constantly, and one mistake can eliminate months of careful gains. The mathematics of casino gambling, when the best strategy still loses. The third attempt involved applying mathematical analysis to casino gambling, specifically craps betting focused on the 6 and 8 bets. These bets have among the lowest house edges in the casino at 1.52%, making them theoretically the best bets available. The strategy involved progressive betting doubling and tripling bet sizes when ahead, combined with strict discipline about leaving the casino while profitable. The approach seemed mathematically sound. The 6 and 8 are the most frequently rolled numbers besides 7, giving them the highest probability of hitting before a 7 out. The house edge, while present, was minimal compared to other casino games. The progressive betting strategy was designed to maximize profits during winning streaks while maintaining a predetermined exit strategy. Initial sessions appeared to validate the approach. The strategy worked exactly as planned during favorable sequences. The 6 and 8 hit frequently, the progressive betting amplified wins, and several sessions ended with significant profits. The mathematical framework seemed to be holding up under real-world conditions. The fundamental flaw became apparent over time. Even the best strategy with the lowest house edge still contains a house edge. The 1.52% advantage means that for every $100 wagered on 6 and 8 bets, the expected loss is $1.52. This might seem insignificant, but compounded over time and multiple bets, it becomes mathematically certain. The concept of gambler's ruin provides the theoretical framework for why all betting systems ultimately fail. When a player with finite resources plays against an opponent with infinite resources, the casino, the probability of the player eventually losing everything approaches 100%. This isn't a matter of bad luck or poor timing, it's mathematical certainty. Casino profit margins demonstrate this principle in practice. The Nevada Gaming Control Board publishes detailed revenue statistics showing that casinos maintain consistent profit margins across all games, regardless of which strategies players employ. Craps tables in Las Vegas generate an average of $144 in profit per day per square foot of gaming space. This money comes from players who believe they have discovered advantageous betting systems. The psychological challenge of quitting while ahead proved as difficult as the mathematics predicted. Behavioral economics research shows that the same dopamine responses that make winning feel good also make stopping feel nearly impossible. Studies of gambling behavior indicate that 85% of gamblers cannot maintain predetermined stop-loss or profit-taking limits when actually at the table. The progressive betting component of the strategy introduced additional risk. While doubling bets during winning streaks can amplify profits, it also amplifies the impact of inevitable losing streaks. The mathematical concept of variance means that even favorable bets will experience extended periods of losses. When combined with progressive betting, these losing streaks can eliminate large amounts of capital very quickly. Every betting system ever devised, the Martingale system, the D'Alembert system, the Fibonacci system, has been mathematically proven to fail over time. The fundamental principle remains unchanged. No betting system can overcome a negative expectation game. The house edge isn't defeated by clever betting patterns. It's a mathematical constant that applies to every bet placed. The handyman business, when 80-hour weeks pay less than minimum wage. The fourth venture represented a departure from gambling and trading into traditional service business. With existing skills in painting, appliance repair, and general maintenance, starting a handyman business seemed like a logical path to self-employment. The initial plan was straightforward: provide quality work at competitive prices, build relationships with property management companies, and gradually scale by hiring employees. The early phase exceeded expectations. A relationship with a local property management company provided steady work. By charging slightly less than established competitors, the business quickly became busy, perhaps too busy. The workdays expanded from 8 hours to 10, then 12, then frequently 14 hours. Weekends became catch-up time for paperwork, billing, scheduling, and planning the upcoming week. The business structure seemed professional. An LLC was established, business insurance was purchased, and proper accounting systems were implemented. The goal was to hire employees and scale beyond personal labor, transitioning from doing the work to managing others who did the work. This required raising prices to cover additional costs, workers' compensation insurance, payroll taxes, liability coverage, and employee wages. The mathematics of service business scaling revealed themselves brutally. Workers' compensation insurance rates for contractors range from 3 to 30% of payroll depending on the work classification and state regulations. General liability insurance for handyman services typically costs $500 to $500 annually. Self-employment taxes add 15.3% to every dollar of profit. When calculated honestly, a self-employed handyman needs to charge $40 to $50 per hour to achieve the same take-home pay as an employee earning $20 per hour. The competitive landscape made these higher prices impossible to maintain. The service industry suffers from a race to the bottom where competitors consistently undercut each other's prices. When the business raised rates to cover the true costs of legal operation, customers immediately found cheaper alternatives. The property management company that had provided the majority of the work switched to a competitor who offered lower prices. Small business failure statistics provide context for this experience. According to the Small Business Administration, 20% of small businesses fail within their first year, 50% within 5 years, and 70% within 10 years. Service businesses have particularly high failure rates due to their dependence on local markets and the ease with which new competitors can enter the market. The work-life balance implications became severe. Research by the Alternative Board found that small business owners work an average of 50 hours per week, with 25% working more than 60 hours weekly. A study by the National Small Business Association revealed that 75% of small business owners work on weekends and 61% work while on vacation. Client concentration risk added another layer of vulnerability. When 70% of revenue came from a single property management company, losing that client created an immediate business crisis. Business advisors typically recommend that no single client represent more than 20% of total revenue, but service businesses often struggle to maintain such diversification. The mental health impact of business ownership is rarely discussed in entrepreneurship content. Research published in the Academy of Management found that entrepreneurs are 50% more likely to report having a mental health condition compared to the general population. The constant pressure of responsibility, irregular income, and social isolation contribute to significantly higher rates of anxiety and depression among business owners. The decision to return to traditional employment wasn't driven by business failure, but by quality of life considerations. The 9-to-5 job provided predictable hours, steady income, health benefits, and most importantly, the ability to completely disconnect from work at the end of each day. The supposed freedom of business ownership had actually created a form of employment where work never truly ended. The advertising apocalypse, when nobody sees your product. The fifth and most fundamental challenge emerged across all ventures: the near impossibility of reaching potential customers without massive advertising budgets. Every product or service, regardless of quality, faced the same insurmountable barrier: getting people to know it existed. The transformation of online platforms from organic discovery to pay-to-play systems represents one of the most significant changes in small business marketing over the past decade. Facebook's organic reach declined from approximately 16% in 2012 to less than 2% in 2024. Instagram's organic reach has similarly decreased from double digits to single digits. Even TikTok, initially praised for its organic discovery potential, has begun throttling organic reach in favor of paid promotion. These changes aren't accidental, they're fundamental to platform business models. Facebook generated $117 billion in advertising revenue in 2022. Google's advertising revenue exceeded $280 billion. These companies are publicly traded entities with fiduciary duties to shareholders, not small business operators seeking free marketing. The cost per acquisition data reveals why small businesses struggle to compete in paid advertising. Average cost per click varies by industry but typically ranges from $2 to $20. For competitive industries like supplements, legal services, or financial products, costs can exceed $50 per click. Conversion rates from click to purchase typically range from 1 to 4%, meaning acquiring a single customer often costs $100 to $500. Large corporations maintain massive advantages in paid advertising through economies of scale. Amazon spends approximately $20 billion annually on advertising. Procter & Gamble's advertising budget exceeds $7 billion. These budgets allow sustained campaigns, extensive testing, and brand recognition that small businesses cannot match. A small business with a $10 advertising budget isn't competing on an uneven playing field. They're not even playing the same game. The QR code vehicle advertising experiment demonstrated the limitations of physical marketing approaches. Studies show that approximately 6% of smartphone users regularly scan QR codes, and of those, only 20% complete any action beyond viewing the initial page. Vehicle advertising can generate thousands of impressions, but conversion rates to actual customers are typically less than 0.1%. Traditional free advertising avenues have become increasingly restricted. Most businesses prohibit solicitation and flyer distribution. Community bulletin boards require approval processes and often charge fees. Even workplace policies typically prohibit employees from promoting personal businesses. The spaces where grassroots marketing once thrived have been systematically eliminated. The psychology of free offers adds another layer of complexity. Research in consumer behavior shows that people are naturally suspicious of products offered at no cost. Free trial conversion rates average 15 to 20% across industries, meaning 80 to 85% of people won't use something even when it's completely free. This skepticism isn't irrational. Consumers have learned to associate free offers with hidden costs, poor quality, or aggressive sales tactics. The conversion funnel mathematics are particularly brutal for small businesses. Industry averages show that 2% of people who see an advertisement click on it. Of those who click, 20% stay on the website for more than 30 seconds. Of those who stay, 2% make a purchase. This means that 10 0 AD impressions typically generate 4 clicks, less than 1 meaningful engagement, and 0.08 purchases. For products with low margins, these conversion rates make profitability impossible at small scale. The hidden mathematics of side hustle failure. The common thread connecting all these ventures wasn't poor execution or bad luck. It was mathematics. Each attempt crashed against fundamental economic realities that success stories rarely mention and gurus systematically ignore. Customer acquisition costs represent the most significant barrier to small business success. Research by the Customer Acquisition Cost Institute shows that acquiring customers through digital advertising costs 7 times more in 2024 than it did in 2010. Platform algorithm changes, increased competition, and privacy regulations have combined to create an environment where only businesses with substantial capital can effectively compete for attention. The survivorship bias in entrepreneurship content is overwhelming. For every success story posted on social media, thousands of failures remain undocumented. The Small Business Administration's data shows that 627 zero new businesses opened in 2020, but 618 zero businesses closed. The net increase was only 9 zero businesses, yet entrepreneurship content focuses exclusively on the businesses that succeeded. Market saturation affects virtually every accessible side hustle opportunity. The barriers to entry that once protected small businesses have largely disappeared due to technology and globalization. Anyone can start a dropshipping business, become a social media manager, or launch a consulting practice. This accessibility creates markets with hundreds of competitors for every potential customer. The time value calculation reveals additional problems with most side hustles. If a venture requires 20 hours per week and generates $200 monthly after expenses, the effective hourly wage is $2.50. Traditional employment paying minimum wage provides better returns with guaranteed payment, predictable schedules, and none of the entrepreneurial risks. Risk-adjusted returns on side hustle ventures compare poorly to traditional investments. The stock market's historical average return of 10% annually requires no time investment, no specialized knowledge, and no customer acquisition. A $10 investment in index funds generates $10 annually with minimal effort. Creating $10 annually through side hustle ventures often requires hundreds of hours and significant upfront capital. The economics of attention in 2024. The fundamental challenge facing any side hustle in 2024 is the economics of attention. Human attention has become the scarcest resource in the digital economy, and platforms have monetized this scarcity through advertising auctions. Small businesses must compete against multinational corporations with unlimited budgets for the same finite pool of consumer attention. Platform advertising operates on auction systems where the highest bidder wins placement. Google AdWords, Facebook ads, and YouTube advertising all use variations of second price auctions where advertisers bid against each other for AD placement. Large corporations can bid far above what small businesses can afford, ensuring their content receives priority placement. The network effects in modern business favor established players. Amazon's marketplace, Google's search results, and social media algorithms all prioritize content from sources with existing engagement and authority. New entrants face a cold start problem where their lack of existing presence makes it nearly impossible to gain initial traction. Content saturation has reached levels that make organic discovery almost impossible. YouTube receives 500 hours of new video uploads every minute. Instagram sees 95 million posts daily. TikTok processes 1 billion hours of video watched daily. Individual pieces of content have virtually no chance of organic discovery without algorithmic amplification, which platforms reserve for content that generates advertising revenue. The professionalization of content creation has raised the bar for what constitutes acceptable quality. Audiences expect production values that require significant time and financial investment. Creating content that can compete with professionally produced material often costs more than the potential returns from small-scale ventures. The psychological cost of entrepreneurial failure beyond the financial losses. Failed side hustle attempts create psychological impacts that are rarely discussed in entrepreneurship culture. The social pressure to be entrepreneurial, combined with the prevalence of success stories, creates shame around business failure that prevents honest discussion of the challenges involved. Research published in the Journal of Business Venturing found that failed entrepreneurs experience depression rates 30% higher than the general population. The study attributed this to social stigma, financial stress, and the identity disruption that comes from public failure. The cultural narrative that frames business failure as personal failure rather than statistical probability contributes to these negative mental health outcomes. The sunk cost fallacy affects entrepreneurs particularly severely. Having invested time, money, and reputation into a venture, the psychological pressure to continue despite evidence of failure becomes intense. This leads to escalating commitment where entrepreneurs invest additional resources into failing ventures rather than acknowledging the failure and moving on. Imposter syndrome affects many would-be entrepreneurs who compare their internal struggles to others' external success presentations. Social media amplifies this effect by providing constant exposure to curated success stories while hiding the failures, struggles, and mundane realities of business operation. The opportunity cost of failed entrepreneurial attempts extends beyond direct financial losses. Time spent on unsuccessful ventures could have been invested in skill development, career advancement, or relationship building. The career momentum lost during extended entrepreneurial attempts often exceeds the direct financial costs. Industry-specific challenges and market realities. Each industry presents unique challenges that multiply the general difficulties of starting small businesses. Understanding these sector-specific barriers helps explain why well-intentioned ventures fail despite proper execution. The supplement industry exemplifies how market saturation and regulatory requirements create insurmountable barriers for new entrants. The FDA requires specific labeling, manufacturing practices, and health claim restrictions that add significant compliance costs. Established brands have relationships with retailers, distributors, and healthcare providers that take decades to develop. Consumer trust and supplement brands correlate strongly with longevity and reputation, creating preference for established players. Options trading and financial markets operate on principles that favor institutional participants over retail traders. Professional trading firms employ teams of quantitative analysts, use sophisticated technology, and have access to order flow data unavailable to individual traders. High-frequency trading algorithms can execute thousands of trades per second, making market timing strategies obsolete for human traders. The bid-ask spreads, commissions, and slippage that seem minor on individual trades compound into significant disadvantages over time. Service businesses face race-to-bottom pricing dynamics where competitive pressure forces margins below sustainable levels. The ease of entry into service industries means that competitors can always undercut prices by operating illegally, avoiding insurance requirements, or accepting below-market wages. Customers often prioritize price over quality, making it difficult for legitimate operators to maintain premium pricing. Advertising-dependent businesses must compete in auctions against participants with vastly different economic calculations. A large corporation launching a product with 50% margins can profitably acquire customers at costs that would bankrupt a small business with 10% margins. Platform advertising systems don't account for these differences. They allocate impressions purely based on willingness to pay. The role of timing in market cycles. Market timing plays a crucial role in venture success, but this timing is largely beyond individual control. Economic cycles, technological changes, regulatory shifts, and social trends create windows of opportunity that open and close regardless of individual preparation or effort. The Internet's early days provided numerous opportunities for small operators to build successful businesses through organic search, email marketing, and affiliate programs. These opportunities gradually disappeared as platforms matured, competition increased, and algorithms favored established players. Many current success stories originated during these earlier, more favorable conditions. Cryptocurrency and NFT markets experienced similar cycles where early participants could succeed with minimal investment, but later entrants faced saturated markets and sophisticated competition. The timing of entry often determined outcomes more than the quality of execution or business model. Social media platforms create temporary opportunities when new features launch or algorithm changes favor different content types. These windows typically last months rather than years, and identifying them requires constant monitoring and rapid execution. Small businesses often lack the resources to capitalize on these brief opportunities. Economic conditions affect side hustle viability through multiple channels. Interest rates influence investment alternatives. Employment rates affect customer demand, and inflation impacts input costs. The economic environment during 2020-2022, with low interest rates and stimulus spending, created conditions more favorable to entrepreneurial ventures than the higher interest rate environment that followed. Alternative approaches and risk assessment understanding why traditional side hustles fail suggests alternative approaches that might offer better risk-adjusted returns. Rather than competing directly with established businesses, alternative strategies focus on areas with less competition or better economics. Skill development represents one alternative approach. Instead of starting a business, investing time in developing valuable skills can increase earning potential in traditional employment. Technology skills, in particular, offer high returns on time investment and don't require customer acquisition or business development. Investment in financial markets, while not without risk, offers better mathematical expectation than most side hustle ventures. Index fund investing requires minimal time commitment and has historically provided consistent returns. The compound interest effect over decades can generate significant wealth without the active management required by business ventures. Geographic arbitrage opportunities exist for certain types of work, particularly in digital services. Residents of lower cost of living areas can provide services to clients in higher cost areas, capturing value from price differences rather than competing on efficiency or innovation. Niche expertise development can create opportunities in specialized markets with less competition. Rather than competing in broad markets like general consulting or dropshipping, developing expertise in specific technical or regulatory areas can command premium pricing. Partnership strategies might offer better success odds than solo ventures. Combining complementary skills, sharing financial risk, and leveraging network effects can improve the probability of success while reducing individual exposure. The mathematics of minimum viable success. Analyzing the mathematical requirements for viable side hustle success reveals why most attempts fail. Every business model has threshold requirements for revenue, profit margins, and scale that determine viability. Customer lifetime value must exceed customer acquisition costs by a significant margin to account for operational expenses, market changes, and growth investment. In competitive markets, customer acquisition costs typically range from 5 to 10 times the gross profit per customer, making sustained profitability difficult for small operators. Fixed cost absorption requires minimum revenue levels regardless of business model. Business licenses, insurance, accounting, legal compliance, and technology infrastructure create baseline costs that must be covered before any profit is possible. These fixed costs often require monthly revenues of several $1,000s to achieve break-even. Time value calculations show that most side hustles require significant scale to justify the time investment. A business generating $500 monthly profit that requires 40 hours monthly effort provides an effective wage of $12.50 per hour before considering the entrepreneurial risks involved. Market size limitations affect the maximum potential of local service businesses. A handyman serving a local market has a finite number of potential customers, creating natural limits on growth potential. Online businesses face global competition but must compete against established players with superior resources. Capital efficiency varies dramatically between business models. Service businesses require minimal upfront capital but are limited by personal time availability. Product businesses require inventory investment but can scale beyond personal time constraints. Software businesses have high development costs but low marginal costs for additional customers. The skeptic's case. Skeptics of this analysis point to legitimate counter-arguments that deserve consideration. The most compelling criticism focuses on selection bias in the cases presented. These 5 specific ventures may not represent the broader universe of side hustle opportunities. Perhaps other business models, different timing, or alternative execution strategies could have yielded different outcomes. The sample size of one person's experience, while documented in detail, may not generalize to other entrepreneurs with different skills, networks, or market conditions. Successful entrepreneurs often emphasize that failure is part of the learning process, and persistence through multiple failures is common among eventual success stories. Market conditions during the period these ventures were attempted may have been particularly challenging. Economic uncertainty, platform algorithm changes, and increased competition could have created temporary conditions rather than permanent structural barriers. Different timing might have yielded different results. The geographic location, target markets, and specific execution strategies chosen may not have been optimal. Other approaches to the same business models might have succeeded where these particular attempts failed. The supplement business, for example, might have worked with different marketing channels or product positioning. Some critics argue that the mathematical analysis focuses too heavily on average outcomes rather than the distribution of results. While most ventures fail, the successful ones often generate returns that far exceed the losses from failures. From this perspective, multiple small failures might be justified if they eventually lead to one large success. However, these arguments don't address the fundamental issue of customer acquisition costs in modern digital markets. Even with perfect execution, different timing, or alternative strategies, the structural challenge of reaching potential customers at sustainable cost remains. Squared questions. Why do platform algorithms consistently reduce organic reach over time, and is there any realistic way for small businesses to maintain visibility without increasing advertising spend? What specific changes in market conditions, technology, or regulation would be required to restore the small business opportunities that existed in earlier decades? How do the few side hustle success stories overcome the customer acquisition cost barriers that defeated these attempts, and are their methods replicable at scale? Why does the entrepreneurship education industry continue to promote strategies that statistically fail for the majority of participants, and what economic incentives drive this behavior? What alternative economic models could provide the financial independence that side hustles promise without the customer acquisition and competition challenges inherent in traditional business models? Things to think about: what if the real value of side hustle attempts isn't financial success, but rather education about business fundamentals and market realities? The knowledge gained from these failures might be worth more than the money lost, particularly if it prevents larger financial mistakes in the future. Could the rise of artificial intelligence and automation create new opportunities for small businesses by reducing operational costs and enabling competition with larger players? As AI tools become more accessible, they might level the playing field in ways that human labor cannot. Is it possible that successful entrepreneurship requires a different psychological profile than most people possess, and the democratization of business advice is misleading people who would be better served by traditional employment paths? Perhaps entrepreneurial success depends on traits that can't be taught or learned. What would happen if platform advertising costs continued to increase at current rates? At what point would digital advertising become so expensive that alternative marketing methods would become viable again, potentially creating opportunities for businesses willing to use older approaches? Could regulatory changes that limit platform advertising dominance or restore organic reach create new opportunities for small businesses? If platforms were required to allocate a percentage of visibility to organic content, would this restore the conditions under which small businesses could thrive?
There's a space behind your thoughts tonight, where the noise fades into something more. Ancient builders saw the golden light in the spirals that the Nautilus wore. We're made of sacred geometry, hidden patterns that we cannot see. We're made of sacred geometry, the blueprint of eternity. Pyramids rise with perfect design,